Testing, testing. One, two, three. Good evening, lords and ladies of the unbelievability. It's time for our first stream in 2024. It is the 7th of January, and it is the beginning of the Rapture. Everybody is noticing this today, and I'm starting to speak to you at 9:17 because it is the day when everybody is having fun, noticing how everything is turning to 17. So as the rapture starts, you are going to see it everywhere because when everything is 17, it means it's over. The rapture happens. So I mean the rapture with a W. We're wrapping this story up. We're going to see the end of the greatest show on earth, which was started over 10 years ago and has occupied thousands of actors who have been playing every aspect of our reality. People don't know that we're under martial law, except it's spelled MARSHALL law. And this is also a thing, like last year at this time, there was a joke, in the papers about martial law, and they spelt it Marshall, like George C. Marshall. Actually, it does refer to George C. Marshall. It's the Staying Alive Project. So anyhow, this is for my readers who have been with me for a long time, because if you're just joining me and you've been reading everything all wrong in order to interpret it as something negative, well, then I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry. But the good news is that the truth is positive. So it's going to be up to you to decide whether or not you want to stay in the negative interpretation of everything, or if you want to join the rapture and enjoy the lighthearted version of everything. Because that's really the nature of the truth. It's lighthearted. So anyhow, here are some exclusive portraits of historical figures who celebrate their birthday today. So eventually I will post right next to the image, like the reference image, so that you can see the difference between the portraits that I make and the image it was based on. So these images have been created using the AI Midjourney, and unfortunately this thing is very slow. So I find a good reference image, and then I use Midjourney, which I've trained with a very specific style, in order to create a new portrait of historical figures. And I did this systematically over many days, and I was able to create, well, actually over many months, and I was able to create over 1,000 of them. I have 16,000 people in my database. But for the ones that were born before 1900, I try to take time to make them a portrait. Also, see, this is Adolf Zucker. So yeah, today I decided I was going to stream, and then I realized that I have all the content. It's just that my integrations aren't completed. They never are. All right, this is our birthday boy. It's Charles Adams' birthday today. And Charles Adams, you know him as the maker of the Addams Family. And today we're going to see how the initial idea for the Addams Family was also born on January 7th. So stay tuned. So he was conceived around April 2, but in reality, it was on March 29, 1911, 112 years ago. And this is, I'm missing the title for the event. This is absolutely atrocious, actually. But this is when the Princess Vilma organized a showing of Frederick Townsend Martin's painting in her suites at the plaza. And yeah, so Frederick Townsend Martin is the millionaire with a mission, and he was an advocate for the poor. And he really was the leader of society in New York. And he used to organize parties for the poor, so they could just wear their Sunday best, and he would take care of the rest, furnish the food and the booze and the entertainment. And he wrote a book called The Passing of the Idle Rich, which is really, really funny because he really thought that rich people were useless. See, he inherited all of his money and he gave it away. So he would spend all his time telling everybody else that if they weren't giving all their money away, they were basically useless. And the passing of the idle rich is like, because we say the passing when somebody dies, right? And the idle rich, there are people who are rich but don't really do anything. And what um, what Frederick Townsend Martin did with Princess Vilma was manage the dead. And these are usually very rich people who don't really have um, life. They're the kind of people who are unable to create, they're unable to invent, they're unable to write, they're unable to furnish any sort of value to society, but they have a lot of money. So they use their money to do terrible things. So that's what the passing of the idle rich meant for him. It's like, die, motherfucker, die. That was his book, and he really had a dark sense of humor. It was really great because I remember him. Okay, so I have him as registering the great Charles Adams. So technically, Charles Adams produced his he produced the fantasy like the Adams Family, and that has Morticia and Gomez in it. But Morticia is most likely, that's Princess Vilma, who painted Frederick Townsend Martin in 1911. But she must have worked with one of her daughters, because in 1911, Princess Vilma was in her 40s. She was long past her time when she was supposed to have children. Like mothers at the turn of the century, the mothers who have all the children with the writers and all that, they were having children between 16 and 36, and that's it. Because it's kind of a lot of work to have twins every year. So yeah. So I have her still as listed because Charles, did such a great ode to your mother, even though it seems like it was to his grandmother in the form of the Adams Family. So Her Serenitas, the Princess Vilma, she was a painter, and she was the daughter of Henry Halleck, the commander of the U.S. armies before Grant, and she was born in Europe to a Hungarian family so that she would be educated in Hungarian, and she spoke German. She also spoke French, Italian, and English, obviously. So she could interrogate her man in 5 languages. That's what an article said about her, because she was an interrogator for Kaiser Wilhelm II and King Edward VII. And she worked with Frederick Townsend Martin because he was the liaison, with the people who owned the buildings in New York. And at the beginning of the century, Princess Vilma was the one who had the liaison and the friends who lived under the buildings. So there was a low society in New York, and that's the underground. And Princess Velma and Frederick, they were working to make sure that the building owners did something about what was going on underneath their building. So it was a really interesting legal adventure. So that one is interesting. Today is really interesting. Like I have a few people that have an interesting story. So there's Nicholas Thomas de Vere, and he claimed to be the sovereign of the Dragon Court of the Royal House of Vere. So HRH Prince Nicholas de Vere von Drakenberg. And he was a sovereign grandmaster and Magister Templi. So this, look at his face, and look how he's dressed. He's wearing a white outfit, a neckerchief, and he's making that face. All right. So in order, like, of course, people, step one, don't fall far from the tree. So this person comes from a person who claimed to be someone else, or who made a claim to an identity that was not necessarily supported. I've read about this guy. Like, he was kind of interesting, but he was in honeypot, for dragons. So he's kind of interesting. You can read about him if you want. So he was conceived around April 2, 1956. And this is when Colonel Tom Parker was formally appointed as Elvis Presley's manager. So Colonel Tom Parker, he was Elvis's exclusive and protective manager, and he was self-styled as Colonel Parker because he entered the U.S. illegally at 20, and he claimed to have been born there, and he also never served in the U.S. Army. But he was born in Holland, where Nicholas de Vere lived. See? He returned a child to his family of origin. And you have the big pretender, stolen valor guy on the right, and then you have a big pretender on the left as well. Because these people are all, like they all have they all have a sort of like persona beyond the stage where they attract nefarious people to themselves or amoral people to themselves. And of course, somebody who's pretending to be a colonel is kind of, like this guy doesn't come off as, he comes off as a little strange. So tomorrow is Elvis Presley's birthday on January 8th. And so while Nicholas de Vere was born in Holland and he has the same kind of story of origin as Colonel Tom Parker, the not American, not Colonel, Elvis Presley was born a day after Nicholas. So, and Elvis Presley has children named Nicholas. So it could be from Elvis Presley as well. It's hard to tell the difference sometimes. But I sincerely think that he looks so much like Tom Parker. See, he's trying. He's wearing like a black and white little neckerchief, just like Mr. Contrast right here. And he has the same outfit. So he's retroactively telling us that it's Tom. Which is nice. We have to pay attention to this stuff. Now we have John Rich. John Rich is the cowboy in the sky in the video The End of the World by Tom MacDonald. And Tom MacDonald is the ultimate MacDonald, but more than that, Tom MacDonald is, he is very, very, like he's doing time stamping. So there's a whole bunch of things that are promised for the future in conspiracy theories. And now we're entering the Wrapture. So the Wrapture is about wrapping up all of these things that have been promised to conspiracy theorists for a long time. Uh, well, all of these things that have been promised to the general public who likes conspiracy theories, it comes from the US Army. So the US Army has deployed a wide set of conspiracy theories and the actors to play them and the writers to write about it for 100 years. And one of the conspiracy theories is that Jesus is going to come in and back in the sky, and take people away, like the rapture. But in the rapture, which starts with the W, we wrap up all these things. And in the end of the world, it is John Rich who was in the sky, the cowboy in the sky singing. So the people who are initiated and promise to never talk about the things that I'm talking to you about, they know that the person who is going to come back and is Christ, he's a singing cowboy. It's like the original uh, being that Christ was, that Jesus was, like long, long, long before creation, he was a cowboy who liked singing. So it's a continual joke in the media of the artists who are doing Christian-based, the disclosures or Christian-based references. The singing cowboy is very important. So American country singer and songwriter, he's not American, he's Canadian. What the heck? He's from Calgary. Anyhow, so he's wearing a black hat in this picture, which is interesting. So he was conceived again in 1973. And I have two events. You're not going to believe this, but that's just the way that it is. And you can research these people in order to be able to understand you can understand John Rich better. Go see about his first songs. John Rich. Okay, it's very important that you understand that John Rich is a nurse, that he's a medical professional, and that he has a very good understanding of what is being, like policed right now. So that's what's interesting about him. And then he changed his job and he became a singer. And if you go back and you look at the first things that he did, there he says, more about who he is. So we have Jerry W. Friedheim, who was confirmed in his position as acting U.S. Assistant Secretary of Defense for Public Affairs. I have no idea what this position is. It sounds kind of, complicated. And so there's a photo of him. And he was born October 7, 1934. So our boy is born on the 7th as well. So usually it's kind of, like the parents try to make everything align so that we're able to figure it out. Like that's the same thing that we had with Nicholas before. Like he's wearing the exact same outfit as his dad. He's doing an ode to his father. Ode to your father, word to your mother. It's the thing that actors do, actors of reality do, so that all the other actors can properly square dance with them. Because these are all people who just like pop out and are sent into the field in order to do psyops, and everybody else who encounters them has to have a way in order to check where they come from, because they're not supposed to talk to them about that. But if they have a problem with someone, they have to go to their mom. So that's why the actors of reality do word to your mother, which is a thing they do that's kind of silly, that has a clue about who their mom is. And you go to their mom in order to have a word with them. You go give a word to their mother if you have a problem with them. That's how it works. So, of course, we have public servants here. All the public servants that are national security, every single time they do something in the media, there is a conception created. And in the end, it proves that everything has all been planned down to the last detail for 100 years. So this is our comparison. I think John Rich is fascinating for the next thing, because this came out on my birthday. Devil in Miss Jones, starring Georgina Spelvin, is released. Now, this is the weirdest thing because this film is Amazing Disclosure. It has this scene at the beginning where Georgina meets St. Peter, and he says, "Oh, you can't come into heaven, you have to go back down there." And, but it's kind of convoluted, of course, because it's a porno film. But I thought that this is disclosure. This film is psychological warfare, and it contains a lot of disclosures. For instance, the name of the character that she meets is a character in the film series or the game series, Resident Evil. So yeah, so Georgina Spelvin worked on the expelling of the evil residents, who are not supposed to be in this realm, and she has a character in her film whose name, is mentioned in that. So there's always links everywhere that you can find. So Georgina Spelvin offers you disclosures that have to do with bioengineering. If you follow carefully the who the people in the film are, if you check out their name, you're gonna get pointed to other things like science fiction that, and we know what science fiction, right, is. Science fiction isn't, so it's not fiction. It's very useful. It's full of really interesting information. So yeah, so all the golden age of porn films star lovely ladies like Georgina right here, who has a double identity. I love Georgina Spelvin's double identity. She worked in aerospace. So so some of other porn stars, they worked in the army as well. So these all the ones from the golden age of porn, like, they have double identities. So it's kind of fun to look at that. So how you find the double identities? It's easy. They don't hide. So you just go and you look at the people that were born around the same day. And what you can do for that is IMDb is always fantastic. It has a search by date. So you put date of beginning, date of end, picked 48 hours around your date, and then it's going to give you a whole bunch of people who look like twins. And it's really cool because they're all organized. The first two go together, the second two go together. It's people are trying to be as obvious as possible about their work. So Harry Reams was in that film as well. So yeah, it's interesting that after that he was a real estate agent. So I would expect Harry Ream to have also had another identity when he was younger, because he worked with directors that have done a whole bunch of psyops. So how it works is a film comes out, it starts The Beautiful Lady, and then at the same time, a national security professional has an event related to their career. It's like a marker in the process. So the priority goes, like, the national security professional that is accomplishing something during the week, they are the ones that are they're going to be matched with a woman, but it's the woman that chooses. So you have so let's say in the first week of January you have 4 sisters who are published. Hugh Hefner is going to put one or two in his magazine. Another one is going to release a book, and a third one is going to do something silly. So their name is there is all findable in the thing, and that means that there can be 6 to 8 children born. So they choose like who they want to go with, and they all know in advance when their week is going to be, so they have a lot of time to prepare. This is a logistical nightmare, but bless their heart, the US Army, they can do things. So those were my events or my people. These are my events. So or is this tomorrow? Ah, yeah, I added things after 8 o'clock, so it's wrong. It's the things for tomorrow, but I have events for tomorrow here. Um, because right now we have the George Friedrich Handel stuff happening. George Friedrich Handel released two operas. Um, he 10 years, 30 years apart. I don't remember. 78 was the first one. So this is the one that we got John Adams from. So John Adams comes from George Friedrich Handel, and there's a lot of people in the U.S. Army that come from composers. Composers are special. Composers are very special. And they are, like vibration masters. They are made, people like Handel were made from cherub energy. So John Adams, POTUS number 2, and he was also a diplomat in Paris. So I think he went first to Paris, and no, he went second. No, he went first. Yeah. And then after that, Benjamin Franklin went. And they were doing a thing where they were fucking things up for everybody. Like they sort of drove people against each other and they helped out with the whole situation. There's a lot of people who are completely registered as being, like there to only like fuck up what was going on in France and England and all that. So George Friedrich Handel, what is interesting about him is that he has the chin hole. Usually the chin hole manifests in people who are kind of a big deal. They're pulled from high dimensions. Because when I say that composers are special, in the 18th century, there was a whole bunch of composers who were very specifically made, but they were made from cherub energy. So they were like, it's like you give people like a guardian angel who's a cherub, and these people are very versatile. We see the cherub as a baby, in representation because they're young, they're from 11D. So in 11D, not that as much time has passed in their impression as time has passed in our impression over here, all the way in 3D. We're very, very far away from there. And so when you bring a cherub, like we put them in places where they wouldn't get into trouble, So being a composer is a good job for that. Eventually, we had the circus in order to keep an eye on the people that we were renewing, with cherub energy. So yeah, so the aim was to make clowns, like the comedians who are relatable to everyone. So that was our goal, to make the relatable. We did that to make an anti-Satan. The clown is an anti-Satan, but it's kind of like the same thing. The clown is the hobo clown is the very first clown, and this clown, he drinks. He hangs out with the wrong people, and there's rumors going around that he might be, like doing terrible, terrible things. And the clown was invented by Joseph Grimaldi, and he was really funny. And when Joseph Grimaldi invented the clown, he didn't do a clown with a red nose. He did a clown that had a chin dot, like a red chin dot. If you research Joseph Grimaldi, you'll see it. And so that's why the chin dot is kind of like a clown tell, and it can either mean angel or archangel. So it kind of depends. And of course, I can't really tell necessarily which angel is, like residing with George Handel to help him. And that's kind of hard to know. Except the archangels, they have very, very, they have a very distinct personality, so they're easier to detect. So I have stuff for tomorrow. So tomorrow is when King Umberto I became King of Italy, and this led to the conception of someone you've never heard of. So King Umberto, he is one of the founders of the anti-death squad, the Death Takes a Holiday, which is a group of people who faked the death of royals in the 19th century, and of course he's one of them. He's he was almost assassinated. Like the first attempt that was organized for him was on November 17, 1878. And then he was assassinated for real, but, for fake, in July 1900. So yeah. So I don't know if after he was assassinated, if he changed his mustache situation, because this man had the largest mustache ever seen on anybody. So the person that, oh, okay. So this is important. So for his death, Umberto's name was Primo, by the way. He conceived someone who did something stupid. So he's a parachute pioneer, but he killed himself because that thing that he's wearing, it didn't work. So maybe you can look him up if you like, stories of people perishing stupidly. However, again, maybe that's not true, because people tend to, in the idea of death takes a holiday, the person vanishes at the exact moment where it foils a plot. So if uh, our parachuting engineer, he was networking with a whole bunch of people. He knew sketchy people. Some of them, they knew he had access to certain things. They started plotting together to do something terrible. And then just when it's about to go off, everybody knows, by the way, in security, that there's plots, coming down the pipeline, because they invent them themselves. And then our guy just goes out one day at lunch to try out his new parachute and never comes back. Oh, we get to the meme that says, oops, because that's how the plot ends. So I enjoy the attempt at a mustache right here. It can never be as glorious as Umberto's mustache, but the people who are in the crew Death Takes a Holiday, which started in Turin in 1865, is that they have weird mustaches. They have really weird and unique mustaches. So yeah, that kind of puts one specific person most likely in this crew. All right, so now we have the things that are really from today. So Fanny Farmer published her first cookbook. So this is unilaterally recognized as a document that changed the world. And Fanny Farmer is absolutely fantastic. So I've made a picture of her. I have the Boston Cooking School cookbook. I have my own edition in French, which was published by the local newspaper in my hometown. And I didn't even know that my local newspaper published books. It was so old. And so it's an edition. It's the first edition in French, but it's long after the original. So we got Jolie Gabard after that. So wait, when was she born? September 30th. So that's the mom of Zaza and Eva. So she was a socialite. So Jaja is interesting because she was a diamond connection. So the U.S. Army was going after people who deal in conflict diamonds. They couldn't really identify where the diamonds came from until much later, because you have to have a subatomic microscope or something like that. or an atomic microscope in order to be able to identify where your diamonds come from. But back then, the U.S. Army used Marilyn Monroe to vacuum diamonds from the market just to try to figure out who were the diamond bankers. So these are people who will translate your diamonds into the money, the sort of the currency you need in order to buy children and weapons. So yeah, so this is, again, I'm always talking about security operations because, yeah. All right, so this one is a big one. And I'm sorry to the people that it's going to annoy, but he has a gazillion children because he's in the paper all the time. And this is one of the ones that did some disclosure for him. So we have Donald Trump sitting in the chair of his dad, Winston Churchill. He was born 9 months after the parade that celebrated the Allies' win in World War II. So there was the Berlin Parade. And he was 45th President of the United States. And there's a lot of people after this event, but I have one that I'm going to show you. Noah Schnaps. So Noah Schnaps, I have no earthly proof that he's from Donald, but he's actually from Melania. And Noah Schnaps, you remember him, he's the kid from Stranger Things. All the people on Stranger Things are helpfully doing disclosure, and the way that they're related to each other and to various other celebrities kind of gives you an additional story. And Noah Schnaps is the one that goes into the underworld. And he's mirroring the experience of Donald Trump going into the underworld. And so when Donald Trump announced his candidacy the day after his birthday in 2015, he went down the escalator. And it's a very symbolic, it's an ode to his mother, because his mother is Inanna, the Queen of Heaven. And so at some point, the being that is Donald Trump went from heaven and came here into the underworld. And in the beginning, this place was full of monsters and also kind of gross and depressing and all that stuff. So we're talking 5,000 years ago here. So yeah, the Stranger Things offers us a disclosure about the nature of our realm. And yeah, so I don't know if that we pop out of this reality, we wind up in 1985 New England, but it would be kind of cool. I kind of like that. I mean, if somebody told me that if I popped out of this underworld and I would wind up in Stranger Things, meaning exactly the time that the kids are living at, I'd say yes right away, because I have a sincere nostalgia for the time when, you know, we could have our own thoughts because there wasn't notifications going off all the time. You know, I have specifically gotten rid of the notifications, and I've fired time in 2021. It's weird because it's been 3 years now, and yeah. So yeah, that one. So 319 years ago, another one that's not from today. Okay, so yeah, so that's the other one, the other opera. So he's used the same day for his operas. And 81 years ago, we said goodbye to Nikola Tesla. And isn't that interesting that Donald Trump started his show The Apprentice on the same day that Nikola Tesla passed? Because Nikola went to take a 3-year break and he came back as Donald Trump. And this is so hilarious because Donald Trump comes off just as weird as Nikola Tesla. Can't dance, kind of tall and lurchy, doesn't want to raise kids, kind of sexist. What else? Yeah, but like Nikola Tesla, I remember him. He was kind of nice. He was. It's just that he is rigid in the sense that he doesn't want you to bother him. He wants to go do his own thing. So he's very concentrated. Like he'll do one thing and then the next thing. And he might have worked on technology, but he liked quiet time and reading. He didn't. But Donald Trump is a kind of ascetic in the sense in his technology consumption. Like he doesn't use technology that much. Maybe he has a phone that he can angry tweet from the toilet from, but he doesn't use, like he's not surrounded by computers. I mean, you see this in his office. Sorry about that. You see it in his office pictures. But anyhow, Nikola Tesla was what is interesting is that Nikola Tesla was in the Adams family. He's Lurch, and this goes back to a story about the about his relationship with thyself in at the time, because Nikola Tesla I would organize salons and Nikola Tesla would be there, and the children would also be there. So his daughter by thyself and the other kids, that were by the other people that I worked with. And they thought like Nikola Tesla was like this monosyllabic giant that didn't like kids, so we always told them, don't bother Nikola, don't go chat with him and stuff like that. Like he's gonna find that annoying. So we kept the kids away from him. And so so Charles Adams, who's also born today, he made Lurch out of Nikola Tesla. And when in 1905, 1906, I was managing a birthing center underneath the New Yorker Hotel where he's lived most of his life. And in the birthing center, there was a big button, and it was the bat signal. So if you click on that button, it sent a message to his room upstairs, because that's where he lived most of the time, and he would come down to go see what was wrong. Because in the birthing center, we had a whole bunch of incubators because we were birthing twins, and they were birthed, they usually would come a little bit early, and so they always go into the incubators. But nobody trusted these freaking incubators that were electric at the time. All the nurses were like, because the incubator is the simplest technology ever invented. It's like a chicken incubator. It's like a box you put over a table, and underneath the table there's like a thing you put boiling water in, and this creates like ambient heat. And if you have a good thermometer, then you can make sure that everything is the right temperature. And so incubators are not a high-tech thing at all. But the electrified incubator, though, like the mothers back in the day, especially the French ones who invented the incubator to start with, they were very iffy about this whole thing. So they knew it was the future, but we weren't trusting the thing. So, and then when there would be new babies born, and when it was Nikola Tesla's babies, we could click the button so that he could come down and meet his baby. And yeah, so he didn't have a million kids. I only have 3, 4, 5 kids really registered to him, which is not a lot. But he is the father of the mother of Marilyn Monroe, Mabel Normand. Mabel Normand was the inspiration for Wednesday in the Addams Family, and she was also the inspiration for Eloise at the Plaza, because Mabel Normand famously grew up by herself at the Plaza because her mother, the princess, came by twice a year. She was ferrying assets back and forth from Europe, and so she would, like, the whole point of it was that like the mothers who were pregnant like would come to the United States, they'd get birth, they'd go back, and this is like it really was an anchor baby strategy. But of course, all of this was done with the blessing of the U.S. Army and under the supervision of the royal family of Germany and of Britain. And by that I mean the women. So when I say, so if it's the Edwardian era, it means it's Alexandra who's taking care of it. If it's the Kaiser Wilhelm, it means it's his mom, if she's or his wife, that's taking care of this. So yeah, it was written that I worked for Kaiser Wilhelm II everywhere in the newspaper, but that was just to announce my credentials to the people I would visit, because I used to deliver notices to people who were doing the wrong thing. Again, another one. No, it's the same one. Yeah, so this one is the... Yay! We have an Addams family. So I'm supposed to have something else after this. So I don't really have a way to stop this, do I? No, I can't really show you the things. But what I did is I created a whole bunch of images of Nikola Tesla using Midjourney AI. And I've been doing this for ever since the beginning of the software in July of 2022. And now we're in version 6, and I started at version 2. And most of the ones that you see here are not recent. They're from version 4 or version 5. And I try to do like badges, and I have so many more than that. I have a lot of tries, but they, like they're not all that useful. Yeah, you're gonna see a few that are really great. So I've tried a Nikola Tesla scrapbook certificate, Nikola Tesla propaganda posters. These are kind of fun. Then I've tried, what else is new? I've tried, yeah, with machines. With machines, it's kind of nice. So Nikola Tesla with a time travel machine. That's kind of cool. Let me go see if I have viewers. So I'm recording this so that I can, yeah, I have one viewer who's not there anymore. So yeah. Well, anyhow, I'm just recording this so that I have the proof that I did something on the beginning of the Wrapture. We're wrapping it up. So yeah, 100 years of hard work to encircle and get rid of the enemy of humanity. And every day is wonderful because there's so many things coming together. So I'm going to end my stream. We started at 9:17 and we're going to end at 10:07. So it's been really great to speak with you tonight, and I hope that we can do this soon. I just wanted to say that I have to move, so I'm not going to be as present on social media while I'm working on this. So this week I have to pack everything and then move on. So yeah, I hope you have fun tomorrow, and I wish you a good night. I'm Marilyn, and I am available at Pingcognito on Twitter and on the web.